EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, checking in for another Tuesday edition here on the show. J-Mac, how you doing on this Tuesday morning, brother?
Finally here, which is, bad day for some people, good day for others. A lot of players will be on the street, so that's obviously disappointing. But after today, you get into regular season mode. It's been a long time coming.
Regular season mode right around the corner, Johnny Mac. 9 days away. Big cut down day today. John, they started cutting down some players yesterday, getting rid of some players. Any names stick out to you? We will run through the full list, but just off the top of your head, any names that you were surprised to see
No.
get cut? Probably nothing yet, right?
No surprises of the league cuts, and I don't. The ones that I confirmed were McCord, the three running backs: Montrell Johnson, Keelan Robinson, Shonderick Powell. The receivers: Terrace Marshall, Elijah Cooks. Tight ends: E.J. Jenkins, Nick Muse, O'Shawn Mathis on the edge, Eli Ricks and A.J. Woods at corner, and Andre Sam at safety. There might be a couple other.
Kenyon Green?
Yeah, I didn't confirm him, but he's one of them. He's gone. He's not making the team. So I'm just giving the ones that I've confirmed. No surprises. No, none of those guys were expected to make the team. I wrote about Andre Sam. He was probably the guy closest to making the team, and was done in by the versatility of Cooper DeJean, because you don't have to keep five safeties with Cooper DeJean's presence. So now those were all predictable cuts, including Kenyon. So no surprises yet. And there typically isn't in that first wave.
Yep, John, we talked about yesterday some moves that this team we're thinking that they might make. They got till 4. Well, not that they can trade whenever, but they do have the roster cut downs today are done at 4 p.m. So should be a lot of moves today coming up, John, with this Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here in the morning. We might be talking again later at some point today. I would assume we will anyway with the roster cut downs, but I'm thinking a trade is coming, John. I'm hoping a trade is coming.
Yeah, I still believe one or two more are coming, and deadlines tend to spur action. As you see with Trey Hendrickson's not coming to Philadelphia, and Terry McLaurin's everything is worked out in Washington. So, when you get to those, in that case, it was a self-imposed deadline because they're veteran star players and they have to be in for preparation for week one. It tells you what they think of all season work for veteran players, by the way, the NFL. So a couple things there, but yeah, deadlines always spur action. So you're going to see a lot of movement from those first wave of deals that Howie made a lot of versus these deals, which are probably more difficult when you have to go to the deadline. You got some jockeying back and forth, whether it's about compensation or money or things like that. So, and then when it comes down to it, you usually get something done if it's a situation where the player's on the outs in their current city, or they say you're not giving me enough and we're going to keep them. So that's basically what comes down to.
Yeah, we'll say. What'd you make of the moves in the move in the NFC East is Terry McLaurin, and then obviously that edge rusher move in Cincinnati with Trey Hendrickson. What'd you make of those two moves?
6 months of nonsense. Knew it was coming. Not saying it's 100%, but 99% of the time when you have situations like this, hold-ins, and the players are still playing at a high level, it's going to work out with their current team. There are times where a player gets so disgruntled that they force their way out. But that was never the case in either of these situations. So, about six months of wasted goofy headlines and goofy speculations, and not only here but all over the NFL. Guys were never leaving.
Pretty good deal size for Terry McLaurin. I think he got, what, 3 years, 96? It's about what we talked about on the show. I'm like, give him a 3-year deal with it out after 2 years and give him $60 million guarantee. I think that's right around what they gave him. So kind of what we projected it would be, John, but they sure that up. That's a big thing for them coming into a season where they went to the NFC Championship game. They got a quarterback on a rookie contract. We always thought that was obviously what they were going to do. So they are now ready for the season to compete with the Eagles, Johnny Mac, the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, that was never going to make any sense, to be in the position that they're in, to be the way that they have navigated the offseason, all of a sudden say, oh, we're not going to pay, Terry McLaurin. That just wouldn't make a lot of sense. So ultimately, it gets done and everybody's happy, and he gets to miss training camp essentially, and get back for the regular season. So, like I said, it says more about the NFL than anything else, especially with veteran players. So with all the talk about you need this, you need that, they don't think you need this or need that. They think these guys will be ready to go with, 2 weeks of preparation, basically.
Let's see what ends up happening with it. John, cut down day is a good day for many people and bad day for many people. Obviously, we hope everybody can figure it out, but it's not. There's just not enough jobs for everybody in the NFL right now. So big cut down day today. Where do you think the biggest surprise, or not surprise, but where do you think the biggest decisions are being made right now on this roster for specific players? I mean, there's obviously keep 53, get 16 on the practice squad. So there's X amount of guys that you want to keep, and you're trying to finagle maybe through the system. Where do you think the biggest question marks come today for the Birds?
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of uncertainty when it comes to the 53, other than, potential outside additions, which we've already seen starts at quarterback, at cornerback, at a wide receiver, those kinds of additions, offensive swing tackle. Obviously those things are hard to predict. Of the guys here, I think the names to keep an eye on are Keely Ringo, because I think he's not getting cut, but I do think, there's a potential for a trade. Anais Smith, which tells you a lot of different things. It tells you, how badly Howie wants to hold on. It tells you a lot about the punt return situation. Do you really want to put that on Cooper DeJean's plate in year 2 when he's got to play slot corner and likely base safety in the defense? That's a lot to put on his plate, even though I think he can handle it. But we'll see if they believe it. And then there's the injury. For some reason, people think, oh, he's going to get injured. I mean, it's like a football play. Of course he can get injured, but I can't really worry about that. He's your best punt returner. Why not let him return punts?
Yeah, but because it's not as valuable as him on defense. Do you think Vic's okay with him returning punts?
No, but I mean, there's
You're never going to legislate injuries, but there's things you can do to increase your odds.
I think there's a greater odds he gets hurt playing every play on defense than there is playing, being a punt returner. So
and the greatest odds are if he does both, though.
Well, yeah, because that's just mathematical.
Right.
You're adding
the risk, I think.
You're adding plays on the field. I mean, At some point, do you really want to, not use one of your best players that want to, you have a difference making punt returner versus a poor punt returner. Is what you're deciding by not putting him at punt.
Maybe there's a situational element, John, like where, remember they used to do it with Devontae. We talked about that a couple
of years ago. I think there will be a high leverage situational thing. Definitely, if they need a big punt return late in game, it'll probably be Cooper or Devontae. I think that'll continue. But So anyway, I have a fundamental disagreement with that, but I agree with you that the Eagles will probably lean in that direction and won't let them allow punts. I do
So
agree with
if you were doing it, you would be fully fine with Cooper
Oh,
just
yeah.
doing
Yeah.
the punts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, that's and the Eagles say the same thing. You can't legislate injuries, and then they try to legislate injuries. So all right. But plenty of guys have done it over the years. Dion used to be a big time punt returner. He's in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he can do it. Why can't Cooper do it? To me, it doesn't make a lot of
Do you
sense.
think it's
But
one of those modern NFL things?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, no question about it. But anyway, so I mean, do I want to keep an eye Smith because he's a crappy? I just don't get that level of thinking. He doesn't
Yeah, I guess
deserve to make
I
this
understand
football.
where you're coming from. I think I've just been kind of bullied into the thought that DeJean shouldn't be returning punts, but I'm open to be swayed another way, John.
Well, yeah, I mean, if a Hall of Famer did it, why can't he do it? Dion's one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time. He did it for a number of years. I'd have to look a lot of years. He was the main punt returner on his team. So anyway, yeah, I do think that's sort of the new level thinking, but I'm already bogged down with the punt.
Well, it's funny
return
because you would think that Vic doesn't want him to, and Vic kind of has.
Well, Vic has already said he doesn't want him to.
Well, and
But
Vic is an old
again,
school guy.
that's a little selfishness,
Yeah,
to be
right.
honest, and that's fine, and that's understandable. I don't have a problem with him. He wants his guy completely focused on the job that he's in charge of. I get that. I'm not going to argue with that, but or Avery Williams. I mean, he's done nothing. Are you really going to keep him?
Yeah, but does the depth of the secondary right now factor in? I mean, they got two guys right now that are going to start.
Their depth is fine. I think the issue is, do they have competent starters at cornerback?
Okay, well, if they lose Cooper DeJean, those competent starters are even worse.
Well, I don't think so, because I think the difference between Jackson or Ringo or even Jacorian Bennett, Mac McWilliams, who are probably going to make the team, is not that much of a difference.
Yeah, but it's not those guys that would be put in danger that you would put at risk. It would be Cooper.
No, I understand that. I understand if you lose a big time player, and Cooper's one of their big time players, I'm talking about the depth at cornerback. I think the depth is fine.
Yeah, you're saying there's not much difference between 2, 3, and 4 or whatever.
Yeah. And the same at safety. I think the depth is fine. I think the difference between Sidney Brown and Drew Makuba and Tristan McCullum is more flavor. What do you want? Do you want the box safety? Do you want the coverage safety? Or do you want the guy who's really, sound and is going to line up correctly? It's what's your favorite flavor? I don't think you're going to see much difference from a production level, just different kind of production. That makes sense. I think the depth at the defensive backfield is fine. The issue becomes, do you have competent starters to replace Slay and CJ Gardner-Johnson?
Yeah, and if you lost Cooper, you'd be really cooked.
Well, yeah, they don't have a natural slot corner, but Cooper wasn't a natural slot corner until he was. Now, I'm not going to compare those guys, but I think Adoree Jackson could play in the slot. I think they've already cross-trained Mac McWilliams. He'd play in the slot. Obviously, you're not. Anytime you lose the one of the 18 or 20 players that make the Philadelphia Eagles, you're going to have a significant downgrade. So you can have the same conversation with Saquon and Jalen and AJ and Devontae and Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Same conversation. Everybody's hyped up and given Howie Executive of the Year for getting back Fred Johnson. I mean, you saw it last year. They persevered. When I was writing about Fred, the PFF had him 74 of 81 or something like that. I mean, there's a significant downgrade. It's just better than what you had. So, you have that incremental improvement. He was 74 of 81. Yes. I mean, he wasn't replacing Jordan Mailata. The Eagles were persevering without Jordan Mailata. And they did a good job of that because they have a bunch of other good players.
John, yesterday they waived Kenyon Green. I know you said you didn't confirm that one yet, but that was the one Jeff Kerr came in and said, I don't think Howie's going to accept defeat on that one. Well, it looks like he's going to. What do you think of that trade in hindsight right now, John?
Well, I don't think the trade had anything to do with Kenyon Green. He was a throw-in.
Yeah, but now you've officially traded CJ for basically nothing.
Well, they were going to cut him. So, I mean.
Man, they were really going to cut CJ?
CJ explained the whole phone call with the "Hey, buddy, we're
Yeah,
going to release you."
I don't get on that player. He was pretty cheap for a team.
Well, partially it was about the money, but more about.
It wasn't really about the money. That's what I'm getting at. It was literally about because he's a headache in the locker room. That is it. I think that's my speculation.
I think if you're gauging it, yeah, the vast majority is the headache part of it. I think if he wasn't a headache, I thought if he was a model citizen in the locker room, he'd still be here. So yes, clearly. But the money is part of it, and the fact that they wanted to get the financial ducks in a row as well. And they said, all right, where can we cut? Where can we trim? Where can we do this? And one of the first thoughts is, all right, let's get rid of this guy because he's a pain in the ass, basically. So both parts of it, but you're right. If he were considered that model sort of Eagle citizen, he'd still be here. There's no question about that. But it never had anything to do with Kenyon Green.
Yeah, well, I know that. I'm just saying do you think that they went too far with that move? Because they technically put the team, the organization, we have a better system, and we can prevail by giving up a good player because he doesn't fit what we want in to be that type of person, as opposed to you have a good player who checks a box on a roster spot right now that we have questions at, admittedly after him. And he was not making that much money. I mean, he was making $8 million.
Well, I think from it's the old addition by subtraction. You're not going to replace the player. I always lean player. You saw the first time. It already happened. Were they as good? No. Are they going to be as good this year? No. Does that addition in other areas help more long term? Maybe that's what they're betting on. But they're not going to replace his production this year. No freaking way.
Cost them. I mean, they got rid of an $8 million. That's what I mean. That's why I don't like this trade. And again, I'm not going to harp on it. It happened months ago, but I did think it was interesting to just kind of.
Well, we don't have to deal with it on the outside. Like they have to deal with it.
Yeah, but they just prevailed and were successful with it. So it's not like it was to the point where it stopped the team from winning. And now they're estimating with a lesser player, as long as he's not a headache in the locker room, we'll be able to make up for it. I don't know if I agree with that assumption. I mean, you need good players. You tell me all the time, Vic is Vic.
Well, I agree.
Have good football players. Know,
it is about more than immediacy. Yes, they got worse at this position in the immediacy, and I think too many people get caught up in the immediacy. Again, the whole off season was built on preparing for what's coming on the financial front. He's part of that. Would he have been part of it if he wasn't a headache? Probably not. But he was part of that. So, maybe Dallas Goedert's not back. There's a butterfly effect to every move.
Right.
They were able to get Dallas to come back with a $4 million haircut, but maybe if they hadn't trade CJ and it was different and he's there, they said, well, no, we can't even have that discussion and he's not here. So there's a bunch of stuff that it's never just a one move.
Right. I get that. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening for a team that's trying to go back and win another Super Bowl, but I get it. Johnny Mack, another guy who got cut yesterday or waived was Eli Ricks, John. I was unsure if they would try and stash him. I know we didn't talk about him as being kept, but He's been kind of one of those camp bodies that we've had in Philly for a couple years, even made the preseason pick a few years ago and snuck onto the roster. I thought they might keep him with the uncertainty at corner, but obviously they did not.
Well, they have 6. They're not going to keep 7. So he was the odd man out unless
Right.
you do trade Ringo, which obviously, when we say these guys have been important, remember the Eagles haven't officially announced it. And the reason why is there could still be trades. Somebody might say somebody at the bottom of the waiver wire or near the bottom, because the Eagles are at the bottom, but near the bottom, 30th, 20th, maybe they need a corner. And they know Eli Ricks, or they think Eli Ricks isn't going to get through waivers, and they offer a 7th round pick or something like that. That's why, you always hesitate on these types of things. But until they become official, I think the only official ones are Thompson Robinson. The Eagles announced that, and they announced one more, which I forget, but I'll try to figure it out on the fly. But everything else has just been leaked to this point, and the vast majority are just guys getting cut. But there is a chance that they will get traded, and that's why it happens the way it happens. In the case of Eli, he's more than a camp body. They kept him around for 2+ years thinking he could develop. And I've said it from the start. He's got great ball skills, so I get why people get enamored, but he's not fast enough to play outside at the NFL level. Ran like a 4.6 coming out, which is not good for an NFL corner. So he's got to play in his own defense. And I think he might get claimed. If you talk about the guys potentially getting claimed, Kyle McCord's agent, Joel Siegel, he's doing boy. The one thing when you see these national guys, God bless them, and I'm not going to pick on who did it, but you see the notes, and then it's followed by Kyle had a great training camp. Kyle did not have a great training camp, but that's the give and take of getting the news first. And Joel Siegel's Kyle McCord's agent. Now you see Tom Pelissero saying, hey, he might get claimed, which he very well might. I'm not saying, but you see the machinations.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, because I'm a Kyle McCord fan. I thought he would do a better job, and I thought he'd be here, and I thought the Eagles would let him grow. I am a little disappointed that they gave up on him so early. I am a little disappointed in that, because I'm of the mindset where Sam Howell's not going to hurt you, help you, other than you feel a little bit more comfortable for week 1 against Dallas. He's not going to help you. He's not going to play.
If we get to that point anyway, we're already cooked, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And I'd rather be working with the other guy behind the scenes and trying to get him better. But that's
how many years do they have, Sam Howell?
This is the last year on his rookie deal, so this is it. I have to double check that, but I believe this is the last year on his rookie deal. So, 2 years in Washington, last year with Seattle. This is the last year on his rookie deal. So he's an unrestricted free agent next year. Like for 1 or 2 weeks and Jalen Hurts is going to be healthy. I'm confident. I'm going to say that, and people are going to get pissed at me. He's going to be fine. He's going to make it through those 2 games. I don't agree with that. And then part of it is because we've talked about it a bunch. O'Connell's like the guy working with corner. So it resonates with me that he's like, I don't want this guy. I want Carson Wentz. That resonates with me.
Yeah, I hear you. That part of it I really understand.
So yeah, I'm a little disappointed that Kyle might get picked up, claimed on waivers. And he might not. That's Joel Siegel's handiwork. He's one of the best agents in the business, but we'll see. We'll see what shakes out.
And we'll see what ends up happening there. Roster cuts today, John. So what is the rundown for today? By 4 p.m., cuts have to be official? Is that what it is? Your initial
Yes.
53? And then how quick after that, John, will practice squad claim? Like, how quick will all that stuff start happening?
The next day you can start. Next day at noon. So Wednesday at noon.
Okay, so you can't do it like after 4 p.m. tonight. You got to wait till tomorrow.
No, yeah. I mean, backroom deals.
Yeah,
you have to wait to see who gets claimed and who doesn't get, because if you get claimed, you have no opportunity. You got to go to your new team. So, but most of the deals are worked out. But that's why the Eagles will likely practice. And of course, we don't have a schedule, but they'll likely practice on Wednesday. But it won't be till the afternoon for that reason, because you want the practice squad players, and they'll all be here because, again, they all you want them in place for the practice. So, but that can't start until practice squad, but that can't start until Wednesday.
Yeah. Kibo says, what are we down to now? I think the number's higher than we're thinking, Kibo. Most of it's just reported right now. Not a lot of them are official, right? There's only a couple that are official.
There's only been a couple that are official. Yeah.
Dirty Air checked him in a super chat. He says 5 to 7 round QBs are a dime a dozen. McCord sucks. Get him out of here.
That's fine, but that's one of the big problems of the NFL is the lack of patience with young quarterbacks. That is a big problem in the NFL. And the Eagles are typically regarded as a team quarterback factory, which they don't like, but by the way, but that to have, developmental skills, I'll show them off.
That was their own doing. They said that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, they did say it. Well, Howie said it, but he doesn't, he knows he made a mistake is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the lack of patience with young quarterbacks is, again, I'll bring up O'Connell, who had the great quote, more organizations fail young quarterbacks than young quarterbacks fail organizations. And I agree with him 100%.
Rasul Douglas just signed with the Dolphins. I was wondering if he would be a name that the Eagles would bring in.
No.
But no, he's not a zone guy, right? He's a
total zone guy.
Oh, he is.
Yeah. Total zone guy. What is the obsession?
Why did you say no so fast? Because we got fucking Keely Ringo who's on the bench, Adoree Jackson who's been cut from 3 teams. John, we don't have good cornerbacks right now.
I think that their cornerbacks are fine. It's just that they need a starter, and Rasul Douglas is not a starter.
That's fine. Like,
if you can find a starter, and Rasul's older, over 30. I'd have to look, but he was a draft pick in 2017. They're not looking to bring him back. They did bring Matt Pryor back. People will say it was 2018, but offensive line's a little bit different than cornerback.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see what ends up happening there. All right, everybody, we'll take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll kind of dive into each roster spot right now where there might be big changes or not. We talked about some trades yesterday. None of them came yesterday. I thought one would. We did not get any yesterday. We'll see what we got on the docket for today. John, you still holding strong on your over 1.5?
Yeah, well, I am, but I'll what it is. I think one player's coming and I think one player's going. So be a trade. It could be the same trade, then I'll lose. If it's not the same trade, I'll win. So that's kind of my thinking on going over. I think
so. Your thinking on going over was what? They send a draft pick to bring a player in, and they acquire a draft pick to send a player out.
Potentially, they'll get a draft pick for the player coming out, unless he's involved with the trade of getting a player in. Yeah. We'll
see what ends up happening with that. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. We got a good crowd in here, as always. We appreciate you guys. It's cut down day, all right, which is a good day to figure out who's going to be playing for the Eagles. A bad day for a lot of players. I saw somebody say, pour out some Gatorade for everybody that might never play again. All right. That's a tough league. There's no doubt about that. So let's take our quick commercial break. We'll be right back here on Birds 365. Stay tuned, everybody. 3 minutes from now.
The following is a presentation of JAKIB Sports.
If you're a small business owner or you work for a company that loves the birds, You need to react fast before we've used up our entire ticket allocation. And here's why. In celebration of JAKIB Media's new partnership with Savvy Seats, JAKIB Media will give you a pair of VIP tickets for any game on the 2025 schedule, home or away. And we'll give your company or your boss a 20-week media sponsorship package across the #1 digital network for Eagles coverage, JAKIB Sports. And that includes all of our game day coverage. Cost for your business or company? About $50 a week. Let's recap everything. 20-week sponsorship package on JAKIB Sports, including commercial spots, live reads, and liners. Inclusion in all of our game day coverage, including the soon-to-be-announced Green Zone, and a pair of tickets to the home opener or any game on the 2025 regular season schedule. Remember, that's home or away. If you're in Kansas City and you want to go to the game against the Chiefs, no problem. If you live in Florida and you want to go to the game in Tampa Bay at the end of September, no problem. Text Krause at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And remember, do it quickly before this incredible gift is gone. JAKIB Sports and Savvy Seats put you right in the action with VIP seating as we are proud to announce our partnership for the 2025 season with Savvy Seats. Text Krause right now at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And pick your game today. If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365. A big day in NFL land, a big day in Eagle land today. The initial 53-man roster cuts. John, it's almost ingrained in my head now to say initial, thanks to you. All right, so you've won me over on that successfully. Good job, Johnny Mac, but that will be done today by 4 p.m., and then we'll start to see what kind of other moves they shake and bake with. Maybe some trades coming today for the Eagles. We will see what they end up doing with that. But, John, an exciting day in terms of figuring out who kind of makes the roster, maybe some good storylines. I think Darius Cooper is going to be a fun one to see if he makes it, but I always like to see some of the names that squeak in at the end of the roster, the back end of the roster.
Yeah, Darius Cooper's the one undrafted free agent with a shot. So, a lot of teams like to keep one or two for a couple reasons. One, the GM like, hey, look what I found. And two is, you want to prove it's a real meritocracy, even though it isn't. You want to send that signal off. So a lot of people like keeping at least one undrafted free agent every year. So he would be the guy if that's going to happen. But the Eagles are pretty set, and the uncertainty comes from trades and sort of manipulation with the practice squad. So do you want to put a veteran on the practice squad, work out the wink deal to keep a younger player that would be involved with guys like Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams or Antoine Powell-Ryland? If you want to keep one of them, you might have to do one of those wink deals with a veteran player and start them on the practice squad and then elevate them to the 53 when their practice squad elevations, which are 3, expire. And they did that last year with Nick Gates. But that's an example. Like, everybody's like, well, and they're right. Everybody you talk to, the Eagles want to keep working with Hinton and Cameron Williams and APR again. And then not to pick on who commented about Kyle McCord. And you give up on the quarterback. I don't get it. It's like the inverse of when we talk about player ratings and, well, he's a quarterback. He won the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was 19th. So congratulations. That list on the NFL, wherever it comes from, NFL.com or NFL media. The importance of the quarterback. And then when you get to the lower level, oh, he stinks. Get rid of him. It's weird to me. But
Yeah,
you got to work with Cam Williams. You got to work with Antoine Powell-Ryland. But you get rid of the quarterback. It's funny to me. It's because when you are in third team reps, all anybody's looking at is the quarterback. Same way as always the most important player on the field. But you're getting trashed because the other guys can't play.
Right.
And it's get rid of him. It's an interesting psychological experiment.
Yeah, I hear you. It is all of this is interesting. John, let's talk about some of those trades that we talked about that might or may not come today. No guarantee, obviously, on them. We're speculating based on some of Johnny Mac's intel that he shared here on the show, and just our thought process on where the roster is right now. John, I'm here today to advocate sending a 1 and a 3 or 1 and whatever you got to do to get Trayvon Walker. He changes the entire defense. He changes the secondary, improves them. He changes the entire defensive line. He's a Georgia guy. Can put him back with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, N'Kobe D. John, it's a no fucking brainer, John. Come on, give me Trayvon Walker.
Well, I shouldn't have brought that up, but
yeah, I'm blaming you for this one.
There is rumors that Jacksonville will field offers, at least, or there has been this offseason. They're not in a position to win. They change their regime every 6 minutes. Doug Peterson's out.
Yep.
Liam Cohen's in, so he's got no loyalty to a player that was drafted, even one who was drafted number 1 overall. So, they're not in a position that's like, well, if they can get, high level draft compensation, they might go in that direction. It's just speculation more than anything else. But the chatter about the Eagles trying to acquire an edge rusher is not speculation. That's happening. Then you try to say, all right, who can they get? And that to me would be the biggest splash. Like the Hendrickson stuff was always stupid. The Parsons stuff is stupid. This is not stupid in that vein. This is far more legitimately potential, but again, that's just my speculation. That the fact that they're looking for an edge rusher is not speculation.
But he does kind of fit the mold of like the player, the age, everything like that. He in my eyes, he fits what the Eagles are trying to do. Now, he'd have to get a big contract, probably. You don't have to give it to him right away, but he's got the 5th-year option, so he technically has 2 more years left if you traded for him right now. You probably, Eagles, knowing the Eagles, and I would advocate for this, I would give him the contract as soon as possible. I wouldn't really want to sit on my hands and wait. The guy has 2 double-digit sack seasons before he's 24 years old on a much shittier team than the Eagles. I would give him a contract now to get ahead of the curve like the Eagles always do. It doesn't mean they would do that, but you do have some flexibility there with the contract. What do you think of the player as a fit with the Eagles?
I don't love the fit, honestly, because he's not more of the athletic. Like Nolan Smith, I always say, is the perfect, at least modern Vic Fangio edge defender from a trait standpoint. He can move, he can drop, he's comfortable, he played off. This is a more defensive end type.
Right.
Going to rush the passer, but you need somebody to rush the pass. That's the bottom line. I don't give a shit if he can drop in coverage. Big cares, but I don't care. Just do it in another way. Use Jalix or Nolan as the flat defender and do it in another way. So similar to Hendrickson, I don't like the fit other than he can get to the quarterback. And I think it'll be easier for him to get to the quarterback here than it was in Jacksonville. because of the people he'll be playing with
Right.
in that type of scenario. And at the end of the day, they just need somebody who can get the quarterback. And I think he can, even though people look at him and think he's a disappointment because of where he was selected, as you mentioned, 2 double digits. I mean, how disappointing could it be? But you know,
He's 24 years old. Not
the
many
other
24-year-olds
well,
have had two double-digit sack years, and
when you're the first pick, you know, there's and there's unbelievable expectations. And number 2, by the way, was Aiden Hutchinson, and he ain't Aiden Hutchinson.
not even close.
So
Yeah, but like you always say to me, like, he's the number 1 overall pick to the Jaguars. He wouldn't be the number 1 overall pick to the Eagles. So our expectations would be a little bit I think you're right at large on the player. The expectations are there, but that would take a little bit of that.
Well, I think it would quickly, when people quickly realize he was the number 1 pick, I think the expectations would be huge here.
Well, it depends what we sent. I mean, it depends what we traded for him. And again, I don't even know if this is even an option,
No,
but I don't love the idea. I mean, you brought
it up.
Well, you brought up Ebiketie. You brought up him a lot yesterday.
He's more of a fit. I will say
just
that
doesn't do it for me like that. I don't think that's going to change I don't think that's going to make your defense that much better. Might bring.
Well, I think it makes it better. But no, I mean, well, that's the exact thing. He's the, what was he? He was the 38th overall pick. That's the, you know, is he better than what you have? Absolutely. So to me, that's far more logical. And plus he's more of he's not 270, he's 250, and he can drop and he can do those things. And he's got 34-inch arms, which is rare for a guy his height. So he's got that weird Moro Ajomo-like length at his size. To me, he's the perfect fit for what the Eagles are looking for. And it's, and they drafted two pass rushers.
That's
so.
what I mean. Who'd they draft? Jalen Walker and James Pierce, right?
Yes. And they did it back to back. So they carpet bombed it. And those guys are going to play, and they might not deserve to play, but so maybe they're willing to give up on Ebiketie, who's been a pretty good player, situational player. Not a lot of people are paying attention to Atlanta, obviously, in Philadelphia, but he's been a pretty good player. I think that trade would be a home run if they could pull that off.
How much? What would he become? That would put. What do you think that put J-Lux to the bench, and Ebiketie would become your second?
Yeah.
6'2", 250.
Perfect. Long arms. Arm length is key, man. Typically 6'2" guys don't have 34-inch arms. He's got the long, freaky arms.
How tall is Nolan Smith?
6'2"-ish. Same thing. He's a little bit lighter, but
yeah, John, you see, this is where I don't get you sometimes. You always talk about it. They got a lot of small edge rushers that,
Well, I mean, if I were playing the Eagles, I would try to pound the football, but hey, people don't do it. I'm talking, like, again, there's what I want and there's what Vic wants. And what Vic wants is more important than what I want. And he likes what he likes.
Right.
And he likes guys who can drop and are comfortable in space. Nolan's listed as 6'2" and 238. And he's got 30, as an example, he's got 32 and 5/8-inch arms, which is more normal for a 6'2" guy. Ebiketie's got 34 and like an eighth, this is minute, but long arms are big for a pass rusher. Big. Now Nolan overcomes it because he's a athletic freak. He ran under a 4.4. He's got a 41.5 vertical, so he just gets on top of people, and they have a difficult time dealing with his athleticism. But similar to Micah Parsons, not to that level. Calm down, but similar. He's just, he doesn't have the traditional edge rusher traits, but he's so athletic he can overcome it. But yeah, I'd like the Ebiketie fit for Vic. Now me, I'd rather have Trayvon Walker.
What would you be willing to give up for Trayvon Walker, all things considered? The contract, the money, the fit with the team, where the Eagles are right now.
I try to give up a player, and you keep it at a second-round pick if at all possible. But I wouldn't be opposed being the Philadelphia Eagles of giving up my first-round pick because I know where it's going to be.
Right.
Like, I don't care about the 28th pick in the draft. No offense. I mean, people are fired up about the 31st pick, and that's a little bit of circumstance because if he's healthy, it probably will work out better than it should.
Yeah,
But
I mean, let's be real. It's a crapshoot. Half of the guys at the end of the first round will be okay. Half of them will stink and probably won't pan out. I mean, that's how it goes.
Exactly. But they have a better they have a better chance. They have a higher ceiling typically this year when you get the 31st pick because for obvious reasons, people panicked over the injury and, he's not going to be available right away. And it turns out he is available. So, he probably would have been a top 15 pick. So they do have a higher ceiling than normal. But in a typical year, I don't. If you have the 30th pick, I'm not going to lose sleep if I can get a proven commodity who's 24 years old. Even though, I mean, Nolan Smith was the 30th pick. Everybody's fired up about him.
That's the one thing I don't get. I saw one person tweet yesterday or in our chat, maybe it was. I forget where I saw it, but get rid of Nolan Smith in a third for Trayvon. I'm like, what? That's so counterproductive.
No, you don't have to do that.
I mean, you'll get better at edge. You'll get a better player probably, but you weaken.
Well, you wouldn't even have to do that. So,
that's what I mean. I agree with that, but
that's way too much.
I'm just saying. I saw that trade Jalen and somebody or Nolan and something to for another edge rusher. Like that to me defeats.
You're trying to add to the position, not take away, and not exchange.
Well, Trayvon is a lot different of a build than who they got. I mean, he's 6'5", 275. He's not 6'2", 230, man. He's a much bigger, more traditional edge, like you pointed out. But
and that's not necessarily the best fit but Vic will work with it if he can get to the quarterback.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Probably wouldn't go there. You mentioned Ebiketie. John, any other trades that you think? You mentioned 2 trades, and you mentioned maybe a player would be going out. Who's on your mind in terms of going out for this team right now?
Well, Ringo's one. I could see that happening. If you want to keep, they already traded Darian Kennard, but, if you want to, you can get a 7th round pick for one of those other guys because the offensive line is, people are disappointed here, incredibly deficient around the NFL. So, if you can get like a 7th round pick for Trevor Keegan, send him out. Somebody like that, Patrick Johnson, Azeez Ojulari, those 2 guys, Azeez more likely. Same thing. A lot of teams need edge rushing help. And then corner. That's why I wouldn't, when you say Eli Ricks is getting waived, he is, but there's still a chance that somebody offers him something to if they think he's going to clear waivers. If they think he's not going to clear waivers. And then you got Joel Siegel putting the press on for Kyle McCord. Oh, he's going to get claimed. He's going to get claimed. So
I hope he does, but it is a press. That's for sure.
So, not the guy leaving, Anais Smith, another guy, somebody might remember Texas A&M. That's usually what happens. Oh, I liked him coming out of Texas A&M. Let's take a shot. That's usually how it works.
Yeah. How he's known for, he's done that a lot.
Yeah. So those are some of the names that
What do you
potential.
think Keely Ringo's worth right now?
Not
7?
much. Yeah, 6, 7, 6 maybe. He's a good athlete.
6 feels rich to me.
Well, that'd be the high point.
I mean, I feel like it's been pretty publicized that he couldn't get on the field here, and he had every opportunity to.
Yeah, well, everybody's focused on their stuff. They're not focused. We're focused on Philadelphia.
I'm just saying, if you're doing due diligence on the player to bring him in, maybe you'll learn.
Well, you're not. If you're bringing him in, you're bringing him in because he's what he is physically. It's like there's a lot of hubris in the NFL. It's like we can. Oh, you failed, but we can do it because he's so long and so fast, and so people might bite on that. It's a lot of there's a lot of we'll get him going, which tends to be incorrect. So those are some of the guys. But waivers tend to be, I said, overrated every year. Oh, you're going to lose this guy. You're going to lose this guy. You're going to lose.
Because everybody's got 90 men, and they're getting rid of the worst.
Yeah, exactly.
And then everybody's
it's usually
you're going to find gems. Gems.
One of my biggest criticisms, and we're going to have Les Bowen in hour 2, unless I want to ask Les this, is that the whole mindset of like I couldn't believe the flowers Howie deserves all the flowers he gets. Let me make this clear. I got to talk to Howie later. He's the best GM in football. Best GM in football. I couldn't believe the flowers he was getting for the damn Sam Howell and Fred Johnson trades. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Well, I don't think I mean, I didn't give him flowers, but I think when you're operating, I mean, like I said this, like when you're operating like the Eagles have this year, where they're trying to, Timu is the theme and they're preparing for the con. There's different ways to win outside the margins, and depth is one of them. And when you shake and bake with a couple late round picks and bring in better depth,
come on.
I mean, I'm not going to praise him for it.
He deserves a lot of. Well, I'm talking about others, not you. But
well, I'm just
the people that are acting like he's playing 3D chess. Come on. There's so many things you could point to the greatness of Howie Roseman. Getting Sam Howell and Fred Johnson back in the case of Fred is not one of them. That is an indication of, hey, guess what? My 90-man roster wasn't as good as it usually was because I don't want to work with any of these guys, or any of these guys are not ready.
Do you think he came into the offseason or when they decided that this was their approach, and that might have been a while ago? Do you think they always knew that they would be making more moves in August because they didn't sign 3 players to bigger deals. They signed 12. So I think with that, all right, more are going to fail. That's why we signed so many of them. Like I think he might have known he was going to be shaking and baking late in August.
I think I wrote about this on SI. I think he's in people's heads to a good level. Like they're like, oh, what a wonderful. But no, well, part of it is more GMs are willing to trade, and he likes to trade. Honestly, that's part of it. He likes to do shit. He likes to make moves. Part of it, that's at the end of the day, that's the biggest part of it. He just likes it. And we're talking about non-needle moving moves, as I pointed out. You're not going to notice much of a difference if you would have stuck with Matt Pryor at your backup left tackle than Fred Johnson. You're not going to have much of a difference other than you're losing developmental time with Kyle McCord once Tanner McKee comes back, which should be before week 4. You're not going to see much of a difference. So I think he's just in people's heads, and it's like, oh, wow. Yeah, it's not wow. It's just shuffling deck chairs. Shuffling deck chairs is what it is.
Yeah, but when you have more deck chairs out there, you might know, okay, not as many of these are going to work, or more of these are going to need to be moved than normal.
They got increment. They got
12 Timu guys last season.
They got slightly better. They got slightly better at swing tackle and third string quarterback, and an immediate the immediate part and the immediacy part of it, long term, again, developmental, and it's tough. I get it. It's tough to keep a bunch of players who aren't ready to play, and you're already keeping Miles Hinton most likely, and you're already keeping Ty Robinson, guys who aren't ready to play. So can you really keep those two plus Cam Williams plus Kyle McCord? Probably not. So I get it. I'm not even disputing it. I'm just disputing, like, there are plenty of reasons to give Howie Roseman his flowers. These moves are not one of those reasons.
Let's go to Super Chat here. Philly Lock checks in with $5. He forgot to put the comment, but he got the comment here. Philly Lock, thanks for the Super Chat, brother. He says, sorry, fellas, late, but good morning. Has Bennett locked down defensive back number 2? Nope.
No. Not he. I don't expect him to start early in the season. I expect Adoree Jackson to start against Dallas. I mean, it's still possible. I would say 90% Adoree, but long term during the season, some point, I don't know when it's going to happen. I do think Bennett's going to be the starter opposite Quinyon long term.
Yeah, well, we'll see with Adoree Jackson in there and presumably Bennett, coming up the tailpipe. We'll see what ends up happening with it. Philly Lock, thanks for the Super Chat, brother. I appreciate it. Greg Smith checks in, John, and he talks about Ebiketie. He said, Ebiketie has some serious pass rush juice. I looked at the All-22 after hearing John mention him yesterday. He's a perfect fit for this defense. He has double-digit sack talent. Look at that.
Yeah, he's a good player. I think he had 12 sacks over the last 2 years.
What would you have to trade for him?
Something pretty significant. Maybe a conditional 4 that can turn into a 3. But yeah, he's a pretty good player. And I think he would be, like, if they get him, that's like meaningful. There's a lot, like I just talked about, those trades are not meaningful. Let's be honest. If we want to be honest, they're not that meaningful. This would be a meaningful trade. But, Bennett's a meaningful trade. But people don't see it that way. Because
he hasn't necessarily shown that he's going to make a big impact on the team. But I get what you're saying from a sense that they think he's going to long term, but he hasn't shown it yet.
Well, no, I mean, he hasn't shown it, certainly, but they believe in the player, and it's meaningful from that standpoint. He just got here. I mean, I think they made that trade August 5th. I mean, what do people want? Yeah, I mean, he's something that at least should give you some hope. For whatever reason that hasn't resonated with people. I don't know why, but yeah, it should give you some hope. I would think. But yeah, Ebiketie would be a meaningful addition to the team. And I think people would find that out relatively quickly, because I think it's easier to hit the ground running as a pass rusher.
We'll see what ends up happening with it, with Bennett and all those guys, CB2. A lot of different moves that could be made today. 4 p.m. is the cut downs. We already have lost some guys on the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see who else gets cut down, especially when it becomes official. It's a little different as compared to when it's just reported or coming through the grapevine, as opposed to when it's official. So we will keep our eye on that. John, what is I guess just 4 p.m., right? That's it. That's the only deadline of today. And then everybody else who's been shaking. There's been a lot of trades, John. It feels like the
the latest one. Get this one. The Browns are trading for the Rams offensive lineman KT Leviston. They're giving up a 2028 7th round pick. So these are, when I talk about a player leaving, like if anybody gives up a 2028 7th round pick for Eli Ricks because they don't want to. Oh, sure. They don't want to risk. That's what you do. If you're at the bottom, say you're at 30 on the waiver wire, and you think a player is going to get picked up on waivers and you want that player,
yeah,
give up a 2028 seventh round pick. That's what teams do. So you're going to see more of those types of trades.
So it's
Usually not.
2028 2028
It's usually not that far out, but as Cleveland just proved, it can even be. And remember who's in Cleveland: Andrew Berry and Cat Hickman now. Howie Roseman people.
We'll see. Let's go to a super chat here. Brian Pumper checking in. What up, Pump? He says Ebiketie is a one-trick pony, straight up rotational edge. We need a starter. This guy was coming off the bench on the worst pass rush in the NFL.
Well, yeah, he was a rotational player, and you can look at it, as that's what Jalen Hunt is. I mean, what are we talking about here? Trying to get incremental improvements. Is he better than what you have? Yes. It's not realistic to get Trey Hendrickson. It's not realistic to get Micah Parsons. It's probably not realistic to get Trayvon Walker. But if they do, that's at least somewhat in the conversation. Yes, of course, that's better. For where you are on the calendar, getting better should be the goal at potentially your weakest position. Get better. He makes them better.
We'll see what they end up doing with the edge rushing room. Maybe a couple trades coming today. Maybe not. We'll see what the Eagles do. Still a lot of different ways they could go here on this roster. John, you mentioned something earlier, and I think this is the clear takeaway at this point. But, I view it maybe a little bit differently. But the 90-man roster wasn't as good as they thought. I think the moves show. But it's really more about the 53, obviously, than the 90. But good enough to prevail this year or what?
Well, you're not prevailing with the 90-man roster, so it's not
53.
relevant to that. The 53, yeah, because it's about the top 20 or so.
Is the depth as good this year as it was last year?
No, absolutely not. Well, the top 20 isn't as good as it was last year either, at least in hindsight. At the end of the year, obviously, when they're dominating Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Are they as good as they were on that day? No. Could they grow to that point? It's a growing process. Remember, when nobody knew how good they were early in the season. Vic himself said, we asked him, when did you know you had a good defense? He said, week 7, week 8. I thought we had a chance to be really good. So it's a growing process, and hopefully they grow and get better. But objectively, no, they're not as good as they were last year, nor should they be expected to be. But they're still one of the best teams in the NFL, so they're in the conversation. And as long as they stay healthy, they're going to win a lot of games because the guys who are playing are better than the guys they're going to be playing against. The concerning part is if guys go down and what will have to replace them at certain positions. Like if they're unable to do anything at edge rusher, think about if you lose Nolan. Forget about a season-ending injury. Think about if you lose Nolan Smith or Jalen Hunt for even 4 or 5 game stretch. Think about how ugly that could look. And there are other positions, like I said, at corner. Look, I don't think there's much of a difference between if you want to say Adoree Jackson is number 2 coming into the season outside corner. And if you want to say Mac McWilliams is last, I don't think there's much difference between those 2 players. If you throw Mac into the deep end of the pool, I think you're going to get similar production. Same thing at safety. So it varies by position. But there are certain obvious issues that if injuries crop up at edge, if injuries crop up on the offensive line, more because of who's the offensive line. You know, they have all pros with Jordan, Lane, and Landon, and then Pro Bowl level and Cam. Those are just really good players. Same thing in receivers, just
Right.
really good players. But if everybody's healthy, they're going to be just fine.
We'll see. Matt NG says, "What do you think? Who do you think has the biggest ceiling at cornerback 2?" Good question.
Ceiling? I mean,
Bennett,
by
right?
definition, ceiling would be certainly because they've given probably Ringo, but they've given up on Ringo. So Bennett, just pure ceiling. Obviously, you know, Ringo's probably going to need a change of scenery, but yeah. So if you're taking him out of the equation, Bennett, definitely.
Vulnerable Vitality checks in $10 super chat. Thank you, Vitality. Appreciate it, brother. How's your 53-man roster prediction holding up, J-Mac?
Well, my official published one, this is probably not meaningful to the fans, but my official published one, not well, because they made a bunch of trades, but that's everybody. For some reason, and I disagreed with this. We held it off in the beat reporter contest. We held it off till Sunday at midnight, which is way too long, because then you're getting mulligans with Howell and Fred and Darren Kennard. Now, here's what happened to me. At about 8, I literally, I was typing the email, EJ. So the way it goes, EJ Smith won it last year. The way it goes is the reigning champion handles it. That's part of the joy of winning. You got to handle it the next year. And you got to do all the minutia to get it ready and grade the paper, so to speak, and all that. So it was about 8:30 at night or whatever. It was 5 minutes before the Darren Kennard trade broke, whatever time that was. And I'd been working all day. I got frustrated. My wife was frustrated with me. And I said, all right, fuck this. Howie's got to be done. I'm going to send it off. And I say, I hope Howie doesn't fuck me, and Howie fucked me. I looked down at my phone and he traded Darren Kennard.
5 minutes later, right?
Yeah. Well, literally, no. I sent the email and I looked at my phone and it was done while I was. That's exactly how it happened. So I had Darren Kennard as my 10th offensive lineman, and that will screw me. And other people who waited until 11:50 will have the big advantage. So I'm not going to win. But anyway, that's inside baseball. But who cares?
Doesn't really matter, other than vanity between the
Well,
the
and yeah, I want to win. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of mentally, I kind of checked out. I go, that's, to me, this year would have been exciting from the standpoint of there were going to be so many moving parts, and there has been, and the winner would have probably gotten 46 or 47 instead of 52. And I think that would have been more exciting. I would have done it like 7 a.m. after the Jets game, but you know, I wasn't in charge of it. So, anyway, yeah, I'm not going to win.
We'll see what ends up happening with it, Johnny Mac. Johnny Mac, good stuff, man. 53-man rosters. We'll see. Initial today. I think we're going to have some surprises today. I don't know.
Tommy DeVito got cut if you want him on waivers.
No, I'm good on him. I'm good on him, I think, John. I'm good on DeVito. Let's go to another super chat. Philly Lock checks in. What's up, Philly Lock? I don't know. Did you send that twice, or is that just on my end? I got twice here. Oh, no, it's once. Rewatched the last preseason game and was highly impressed with Montrell Johnson. Yeah, John talked about him after the game.
Yeah, he's going to be on the practice squad, but he's, getting waived, obviously. The Eagles are very deep at running back with Saquon, Will Shipley, A.J. Dillon. And they'll probably keep Ben as a fullback. So, I mean, they want to keep working with him. I don't think he'll get claimed on waivers. But, yeah, when you look at their deeper backup running backs, he was by far the most gifted, the highest ceiling. And I expect him to be back on the practice squad.
Yeah, I kind of liked him. There's I don't know how many. I guess they're going to keep probably the three. I saw. We talked about this yesterday. That one beat reporter had Dylan off the roster probably because they could do a handshake deal and get him back.
Yeah.
Maybe they do that. That would be interesting if they did that. But I could see.
Yeah,
it.
but that would be related to a different position, not
Right,
not
to keep another player somewhere else, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see if they'll do it. We'll see if they end up doing it. Good stuff, Billy Locke. Thank you for the super chats. Appreciate everybody for the super chats today. We do have Les Bowen coming up in about 5 minutes or 6 minutes here on Birds 365. Looking forward to talking to Les, John. We haven't talked to Les in a little bit. It's been a while for him. I'm curious to see what he thinks of the Eagles off season. I don't know when the last time we talked to him was. Probably a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time, but it's always good to check in with Les. And Les been doing this for a long time, so I wanna ask him some about all the love for Howie with the Sam Howell deal and the 3D chess for Fred Johnson getting back. And Fred, obviously they let leave, and I think that had more to do with the assumption that they were looking at, if you remember, they brought a bunch of offensive tackles in to look at during the pre-draft process. They thought they were going to get an offensive tackle to sort of start on that trajectory of ultimately replacing Lane Johnson. By the way, Lane keeps talking about retiring after this season. He did it again. So, I mean, they probably would have wanted to have that in place. They don't have it in place. So that was their mindset of letting Fred walk to Jacksonville, because they could have signed him to a 1-year veteran minimum deal. And they let him walk because they thought they were going to get a younger player to put in that position. And it didn't, the draft balls like it falls. And,
Right.
There's other teams involved, so it always doesn't work out the way you think it's going to work out.
Do you happen to have a list of the draft picks the Eagles have in the future? Because I do think they have a lot to trade if they did want to make a couple moves today.
Oh, they have a shitload of picks next year still.
I
don't have it in front of them.
A couple fours, a couple fives. I think they have. They got a bunch.
They have a shitload. That's part of the reason why they can have so many trades already. I mean, Howie always trades in August. This is not normal. I mean, people forget they already got Bennett and Mechie. And then they made 3 trades this week. That's 5 trades already. That's got to be a record. I've been checked it. Has to be a record. 5 trades in August. Now, part of that is just that the other GMs are a new breed and more willing to do things, like Howie's mentality. So part of it is just that. Yeah, more people willing to do stuff. But the other part of it is Howie just likes moving and shaking. He has admitted he likes the trades. He likes doing
It's
that.
definitely a lot more prominent now. Like even these last couple of days, it's like the NFL, the notifications from all the NFL guys.
Oh yeah, it's all over the league because all the new era GMs are much more willing to move parts, much more willing than the old school guys.
What'd you think of the Browns? The Browns traded Kenny Pickett yesterday.
There's another one. I mean, Kenny and Sam are ironically set a record for getting traded so much during the first 4 years of their careers.
Yeah.
Because again, people are willing to do it. Well, Cleveland couldn't keep 4 quarterbacks. He got hurt. And they're able to get a 5th round pick for him.
I thought he had a chance to be the starter, but obviously the injury.
I think he would have had a chance. I think he would have been the starter if he was healthy, but once he couldn't practice, Joe Flacco earns the job, and then you have the 2 rookies, which, he's probably better prepared to play than both of them, but again, they want to rely on the developmental aspect of it, which is why I'm a little disappointed with Kyle. But I firmly believe that if Tanner McKee didn't hurt his thumb, that Kyle McCord would be here as the 3rd quarter. I firmly believe that. And that to me is un-Eagles-like. Because all right, is it a little bit of a gamble? Yes. And we'll see today at 4:00, but the Eagles have been very adamant about pushing back that Tanner's not starting on injured reserve. So if he's not going to miss 4 games, so he's got to be back within that first 4 games by their own thought process. I'd rather keep the developmental guy. But is there a slight risk because you don't want him playing? Yes, of course. There's a slight risk if you go out to practice every day. But Jalen Hurts is pretty stinking durable and pretty stinking smart. And he plays the game where he's not going to put his body at risk. I can't worry about that.
I hear
That's
you.
very un-Eagles-like.
I hear you. All right, Johnny Mac, good stuff. Let's get to our commercial break, and then we'll get to Les Bowen. Coming up next here on Birds 365, I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here. Big crowd in here today. Thank you very much. One super chat. Mills checks in. Diggs, Mozzie Smith, and a 6-rounder for AJ. He's a Cowboy fan trying to mess with us. Diggs, good stuff. Or Mills, good stuff. Appreciate everybody for being here. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.
The following is a presentation of JAKIB Sports.
If you're a small business owner or you work for a company that loves the birds, you need to react fast before we've used up our entire ticket allocation. And here's why. In celebration of JAKIB Media's new partnership with Savvy Seats, JAKIB Media will give you a pair of VIP tickets for any game on the 2025 schedule, home or away. And we'll give your company or your boss a 20-week media sponsorship package across the #1 digital network for Eagles coverage, JAKIB Sports. And that includes all of our game day coverage. Cost for your business or company? About $50 a week. Let's recap everything. 20-week sponsorship package on JAKIB Sports, including commercial spots, live reads, and liners. Inclusion in all of our game day coverage, including the soon-to-be-announced Green Zone, and a pair of tickets to the home opener or any game on the 2025 regular season schedule. Remember, that's home or away. If you're in Kansas City and you want to go to the game against the Chiefs, no problem. If you live in Florida and you want to go to the game in Tampa Bay at the end of September, no problem. Text Krause at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And remember, do it quickly before this incredible gift is gone. JAKIB Sports and Savvy Seats put you right in the action with VIP seating as we are proud to announce our partnership for the 2025 season with Savvy Seats. Text Krause right now at 267-261-3428. That's 267-261-3428. And pick your game today. If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Tuesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen, and we are joined right now by the great Les Bowen, who joins us here on the show. Les, welcome into the show, man. How you doing in this August 26th morning?
I am great, Zander and John. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Les. It's cut down day. You've been through a lot of these over the years, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on today because, boy, man, have you ever seen something like this in August? We're at 5 trades so far with potentially more to come. 2 things. Why the shift so dramatic this year, and what do you think it says about this particular team?
Oh, good questions. I thought about the trades a lot. Basically, the more significant ones, I think, lately have been to undo maybe mistakes that they made in the offseason in trying to compile the roster. They thought Kendall Lamb, I think, was going to be the swing tackle, and he looks like he's done. So, but they moved on from that and got Fred Johnson back. And I think they were really hoping with, Jalen Hurts has a big contract now. And I think they were really hoping to get by without paying a lot of money at the quarterback position other than to Jalen Hurts. And they were thinking, with Tanner McKee and Kyle McCord, they would have a very minimal outlay there. But McCord, as you saw against the Jets, was nowhere near somebody you can put in a regular season NFL game. And I don't know that he ever will be. There's some real drawbacks there with his pocket movement and accuracy and so on. But I think the good thing about Howie Roseman these days is that he moves on from things. He quickly went out and got Sam Howell, who is basically the same guy as Kenny Pickett, the quarterback that he didn't bring back, previously. So, those trades I see as trying to, okay, we tried something, and it didn't work, and let's go back to more or less what we had before. Turns out he probably could have gotten Kenny Pickett himself back if he wanted to, because he got traded yesterday.
Yes.
And actually, that would have made more sense.
That made much more sense.
Why not? But that's not how it worked out. But yeah, the other stuff, John Mechie was an interesting trade they made. He's been linked with the Eagles so many times over the last few years. I think that was like a value acquisition where they didn't really have a great need, especially at the time. If you remember, Johnny Wilson wasn't injured yet when they did.
Yep. Yeah.
So they didn't have a great need.
Yeah, that one didn't. I said at the time, that one didn't make sense to me at all. Other than they just.
Well, I think they really like him.
Yeah.
I think and who knows if they're right or wrong, but I think they think he's at least their fourth best on the roster, and maybe even depending on how Dotson does, their third best. So it's. Those all make sense, but yeah, it's been. To sum up real quickly, I think we all knew the roster wasn't going to be what it was at the end of last season because nobody has a roster like that. There was a lot of serendipity that went into that. They had no idea Zach Bond was going to be Zach Bond, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and the roster did suffer some hits in the offseason. And I think they're trying to mitigate that as much as they can and get it back to where they're comfortable with the depth.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and do that. They got till 4 p.m. today to get down to the initial 53. Les, following now, all of training camp is done in the rearview mirror, and now 3 preseason games in the rearview mirror. Based on what you've consumed, you've read, and you've watched, what's the biggest weakness on this team? Where do they have to improve? They obviously have some positions on that defensive side that they're trying to bolster. What do you think is going to be the biggest concern for this team this year?
Well, my hobby horse is edge rush. I keep coming back to that. I do not like where they are with the edge rushers. I would not be shocked if there's an edge rusher out there, or at least on the roster by the opener, that isn't here right now. Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt finished the season really, really well. I think in the middle of the season, if you had told anybody that those two guys were going to be the Eagles' starting edge rushers the next season, I think people would have passed out of shock. I mean,
including me, Les. I've been saying it for months. I can't believe how he's going into a season with this edge rushing room.
They finished up great. They have great potential, but they have a very short resume, both of them. And I hope they do great, and I hope they stay healthy, because there's nothing behind them, really. And I was kind of on I know financially it would have made no sense, blah, 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 blah. But the Trey Hendrickson bandwagon before the Bengals finally resolved that yesterday, I just think they needed to make a bigger move there. And they didn't see it or they didn't want to do it. I hope that doesn't come back to bite them. They are going to be really good at defensive tackle. Right. And maybe that will, maybe the rush up the middle will mitigate, and maybe the two starters will continue to develop into superstars and won't ever get hurt. But not much there that I can see.
How big of a move would you be willing to make? Me and John have been talking about a potential. Now, I don't know how realistic it even is, but a guy like Trayvon Walker from the Jaguars is a 24-year-old guy who's got 2 double-digit sack seasons already. Maybe you have to depart with your first-round pick, which should presumably be in the last 7 picks of the draft. How big of a move do you think they would be willing to make? And then how big of a move would you be willing to make? There might be a difference there.
Well, I'd be willing to really do anything almost. I mean, what you said was spot on. I would do that. I would do Trayvon Walker for a first. I kind of think if Howie felt that way, Trayvon Walker would be here, but maybe I'm wrong. And maybe they need to see a few games or get somebody hurt before they come around to that sort of view. And maybe they can plug it up, maybe there's somebody going to get cut here or somebody who's going to be available for a 5th round pick or something that's going to make it good enough. You're not going to be – it's not going to be like last year. You're not going to have great players at every position. It just isn't feasible. It was kind of luck that it happened that way last year, and in the wake of winning a Super Bowl – everybody loves your talent and, but you got to be good there. That's one of the key positions, I think, in the defense. And I don't know that they are.
I kind of took it as all these trades as saying, basically highlighting Les that, hey, you know what? The 90-man roster wasn't as good as it should have been this year.
Yeah.
Versus I saw Howie is the best GM in the NFL. He deserves his flowers a lot of time. I was stunned how many people were lauding him for the Sam Howell and Fred Johnson trades. I'm like, to me, it highlights failures.
Oh, yeah.
Your point of the off season. In other words, give him his flowers when they're deserved. Plenty of opportunities for that. But these kinds of deals are not when you should be saying this is 3D chess or whatever.
No. It's just that I think he has gained. One of the things that he has learned over the years is don't sit on a mistake.
Yeah, that's very valuable.
They used to do that, and he's not doing it anymore. So I give him credit for that. But yeah, you're right. They were not the moves the trajectory they envisioned at these positions wasn't what happened. So they ended up having to undo some things that they tried to do. And I kind of wonder if Isaiah Rodgers wasn't somebody that they will regret moving on from. I think Howie tried to be the opposite of what he was after the Super Bowl 52, when he held on to people and, didn't turn the roster over and so on and so forth, and came to regret it because there were people in decline. But this year, this offseason, particularly on Vic Fangio's defense, he really moved on from some folks. And, he gave Vic he put a lot on Vic's plate. I mean,
they trust Vic. They trust Vic. Sometimes I get the thought process. I get the feeling the thought process in the organization is Vic will figure it out a little bit too much.
And I wonder how much Vic appreciates that.
Yeah, I mean, who was a bigger reason the Eagles won the Super Bowl and dominated it last year? I mean, the defense didn't let them cross midfield for 10 drives, for crying out loud. And then they gut it and say, all right, run it back. But I don't know. He might not be too happy.
Exactly. That's exactly right, Zander. And it took a while for that defense to get its feet under it last year. Of course, Vic was new then. And I just wonder, with all the changes, if it will take a while this year. And we have, it looks like Jacorian Bennett isn't quite comfortable enough to be a starting corner. So you're going to start out with Adoree Jackson, who's a veteran guy who's sort of okay. And you got a lot of uncertainty going on the defense going into the opener.
You know how it works. And cut down day, you're seeing all the national guys. You'll see little tweaks of, hey, Kyle McCord might get picked up on waivers because Joel Siegel's doing his job. And one of those that just came out is a name to watch, Les Bowen, is Zadarius Smith. Multiple teams have checked in on Zadarius, who very good player for a very long time. Older, obviously would step in as the oldest player on the Eagles defense. Still could probably rush the passer coming off the couch better than the people we're talking about. That
name has crossed my mind. That name has crossed my mind. How did he look for Detroit last year?
He had 9 sacks, I believe, last year. So, I mean,
I wouldn't oppose that at all. You never know with a guy like that whether you're getting what he did last year or if that was the last gasp or something.
Yeah.
Who was that guy several years ago, John, that had been a great player for the
Robert Quinn? Quinn.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
But even before him, the guy who had played for Washington for years and years and was
Ryan Kerrigan.
Ryan Kerrigan. History is littered with those names too. So, I don't know, but I do like Zadarius Smith from what I know of him and what I've seen of him. So that would be fine with me. Absolutely.
To your point about Ryan Kerrigan and mine about Robert Quinn, Robert Quinn, who was a trade pickup at the trade deadline, he was coming off a 19 sack season, and he just had nothing left. That was it.
Like a pitcher that just loses his fastball or something.
Yeah. It was amazing. Good guy too, but just had nothing left. It's amazing.
And they were excited about Kerrigan. Lane Johnson had some memorable battles against him over the years, and he just had nothing. He was just there.
Yeah, it happens quick in this league. It definitely does. It's a fast-moving league. The 53 overall. Darius Cooper, you know how it works with undrafted free agents. I think he's the story for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Played very well in the preseason, made some splash plays. I think people are excited by him. You know how GMs are. Sometimes they like to keep undrafted guys to say, hey, look who I found.
Yeah.
Those kinds of stories interest you the most, or is it, the legitimate battles? It's, do you keep Kaylee Ringo? What do you do with punt returner? Because you don't want to waste Cooper DeJean. Do you have to keep Anaya Smith? Do you have to keep which interests Les Bowen the most?
The latter a little bit more. During camp, I'm more interested in the former, the guys that come out of nowhere. But you see that every year, and you kind of take it with a grain of salt after a while. Although I do like Darius Cooper, and I definitely hope they put him on the 53. But the 53 isn't what it used to be. Now that there's a zillion people on the practice squad, and anybody's grandfather can be on the practice squad. You don't have to be a young player. It's chaos. I mean, they want to get out of one of the worst things the PA, the Players Association, failed to recognize in all of this when they were agreeing to all this stuff is this business now of stashing guys that you don't want on the roster week one because they're vested. And you have to pay the whole salary. Now that there's a gigantic practice squad, you'll see that. You'll see the Eagles. The Eagles will cut somebody today that you're like, oh, my God. But they know they can get him onto the practice squad, and they don't want to pay his salary. It might be A.J. Dillon. That's a real workaround for teams. And so
it might be the long snapper. They did that with Rick Lobato one year.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. You know, the 53 on Tuesday is just almost useless. You know, I mean, it doesn't mean that much. But yeah, I really like getting back to what we were talking about. Darius Cooper, I would keep him ahead of Anais Smith. I really would. Anais looked okay. You were out there every day. I wasn't, but from what I saw and what I read,
he just drops it, drops,
Yeah.
too many drops. He's not comfortable as a punt returner. He's a
Right.
pretty good punt returner if he secures the ball.
catch the ball. Yeah. And this is his second year. You know, I grade on that. I mean, you want to see, guy was a marginal player as a rookie. You want to see that big step up. And it looked for a minute there in the preseason like he was making that step, perhaps. You know, he had that nice, his best moment and Kyle McCord's best moment was that 9-yard slant, I guess. Touchdown. But I'd rather take a chance on Darius Cooper, frankly, and I don't think anybody's going to pick up. If they do pick up Anais Smith, bon voyage, you know. You have to keep him on your roster if you pick him up. So, you know.
Do you think Howie's a little bit too cognizant or worried about guys getting through waivers? Because Eli Ricks is going to get waived. He got 2+ years over a pick-6 interception in Baltimore against a fourth-string cornerback. I mean, bottom line, he got 2+ years out. He's almost vested because now you get vested after 3 years.
I thought he was a good athlete and maybe a good special teams guy, they felt, but I never saw him do anything other than what you just mentioned at corner. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, they get their people that they like, you know, and it's sometimes it's a position coach or a coordinator who really likes a guy, you know. But yeah, that's a good point, John.
Yeah. Quarterback too. I want to talk about McCord because I'm with you 100%. He did not look ready. He doesn't look ready, Les. But at some point also, like I'm not super thrilled about the Sam Howell trade from the perspective of, look, I think Tanner's going to be healthy by week 3 or worst case scenario, week 4. He's the backup. You're very comfortable with that. And then all of a sudden Sam reverts to being the third team. So I get it. Yeah. You got a little bit of consternation for week 1, week 2, but let's face it. Jalen Hurts is very durable.
Yeah.
Very smart player, plays the game in a very smart fashion. He's going to make it through. I'm gambling. You can get hurt stepping off the curb. Anybody can get hurt at any time. But the Eagles will be the person. You can't legislate that stuff. So why are you trying to legislate it? I'd rather have the young quarterback, unless you think he's got nothing. I'd rather
think he's got nothing.
Behind the scenes.
You know,
I understand.
Saw him in practice more than I did, but
it wasn't
in the
great.
games. I just thought this is a guy. You know, this is a total whiff. You know, and I'm sure he's a great young man. He's a local kid. I don't want to, I don't want to say that.
Prep, South Jersey. But
I didn't see he couldn't move around the pocket. His passes, he was 42% or something like that. There were some drops, but a lot of balls thrown behind people. Maybe he wasn't getting the reps in practice that he needed to be comfortable. I don't know, but I didn't see anything there. I really didn't.
I respect that thought process. If you think he can't play, that's fine. Then it becomes a different conversation. So,
I thought the same thing about Clayton Thorson. He went right to Dallas as soon as the Eagles played. So.
Clayton, that's who I was about to say, because Les, you will know this. Clayton Thorson was not great as a rookie. Kyle McCord was better than Clayton Thorson was in training camp. He was better than Carson Strong. Remember Carson Strong? He just couldn't throw the ball. He was better than those guys. But to your point, he didn't have a very strong training camp. But, Kevin O'Connell, which I bring up all the time because I think it's a great coach, a great quote. And he's kind of the guy in the NFL now when it comes to working with quarterbacks. So 2 things. One, you got to look at Sam Howell and said 4 months later, I don't want this guy. I'd rather have Carson Wentz.
That's troubling. Yeah.
That's a red flag. But the second part is what he said was, organizations fail young quarterbacks more than young quarterbacks fail organizations. And to give up on the developmental aspect of it bothers me. But if you make that assessment and the kid can't play, can't play.
Yeah.
But I always have that ringing in my ear because I love that quote.
That's a very sobering thought, John. You're entirely right, and I did wonder when they made the trade if they thought they were trading for 2023 Sam Howell, who looked like Tom Brady against the Eagles. He really did. That second,
yeah, we did. He had a great game. That's the best game. That's probably the best game he ever played.
Well, two of them. He really played really well in both games, and they scored over 30 points in both games against the Eagles. The second game was like lights out. It was like 397 yards or something he threw. Yeah. It was unbelievable. But he didn't do that against everybody, and it's a long time. A lot has happened since 2023. Last year he was in Seattle, only got in like 2 games. Then they passed him on to the Vikings. And as you said, the Vikings very resolutely moved on to Carson Wentz. I wrote something for PHLY about Carson Wentz is sort of the Eagles' Kevin Bacon. It's like every time Carson Wentz moves, he doesn't ever go to like the Chargers or something. It's always related to the Eagles in some way. I was standing in front of him in New Orleans last February. He's watching the Eagles win another Super Bowl for Andy Reid, playing for Andy Reid. He was with the Rams. The Rams were key rivals of the Eagles. He was the starting quarterback in Washington for a year. Of course, before that, Frank Reich and the whole Sirianni-Reich thing. Everywhere he goes, there's some huge Eagles connection. And of course, the Vikings, October 19th.
Well, you know who the Minnesota's quarterbacks coach is? Josh McCown.
Josh McCown. I'd forgotten that, but you're right. Yeah.
So, he was Carson's backup for a short period and played that playoff game against Seattle when he got the concussion. With the
tore his groin
or hamstring. Was it a groin or hamstring? But he played well in that game, actually.
Well, he moved them between the
20s.
Couldn't score a touchdown. And they really should have won that game. But that's how it goes. It was not a real good team. But I wonder what's up with Sam Howell. If Sam Howell is still the same guy that was an intriguing – you knew he wasn't a franchise quarterback for the Commanders, but he was a guy you could put out there as a starter and have a chance.
He's got good experience too. Right? I mean, he played a whole season in 23.
But I'd rather have Kenny Pickett back, but hey, maybe.
But isn't there a new rule though that you can't trade back for a player you just traded for 2 years?
Yeah, I was thinking more if he got released. If he
got released.
That's a good point. I had forgotten about that rule.
Isn't that the Reddick rule? Didn't they make that more recently? Yeah. Les, if the Eagles are successful this year, all right, and however you quantify that is up to you. How much different will it look than last year? Like we talked about last year, it was so different than the modern NFL. It was almost like a flashback to the early 2000s of like they're running the ball and they're playing scout D. Very different than the modern game, which has become so pass heavy. If they are successful this year, will they be able to do it that way again? If not, how much different will it look and what might it look like in your eyes?
Oh, that's a good question, Zander. I wish I knew the answer. I kind of think I'm inclined to think it'll look more like the Super Bowl where, Kansas City just loaded up to make sure that Saquon Barkley didn't beat them. And the Eagles, with help from the defense, made enough plays in the passing game to run away with it. I think there's going to be a lot of stress on that passing game. I really think teams are going to say, we're not going to just watch Saquon Barkley romp through the secondary again. We didn't think a team could really do that, but they did it. So, now there's going to be 10 guys in the box or something, I think they're going to have to really make plays in the passing game. That's the way it looks to me. Who knows? And I think the defense is going to have to, I thought the real problem in 2023 when they just went straight into the ground after a great start was that the defense got to the point where it couldn't stop anything. And the offense then got the idea that it had to score every time it had the ball, and you couldn't, you had to take chances and do stupid things to try to get a touchdown every time you had a possession. I don't think they play well in that mode. I think they're a team that plays from ahead, and I think the defense is going to have to get its feet under it pretty quickly here and be something like it was down the stretch last year and at the end of the season last year. I don't think they're putting a lot of stress on that passing game early might not be a good idea. They haven't really played together. They didn't get a preseason game together. Guys have been hurt. A.J. Brown hasn't practiced.
I've been saying that all summer. John tells me I shouldn't worry at all, but I mean, Jalen
from a health standpoint,
I've
also said they'll probably be uneven early in the season, like they were last year.
Yeah,
but
they really were. 2-2, and everybody was really ticked off.
It didn't look good.
Even after that week, the bye and then the game against the Browns, where they just barely beat the Browns.
That was the Sirianni spiel with
Nick
the crowd.
Brought his kids to the press conference, and we were all ready. We
trying to hide from Mike Seals.
Torches and pitchforks
buddy
out
Mike
that
Seals.
day. And but that's just they played 21 games last season. That's something that just sort of, when I sort of pan back, it boggles my mind. 21 games. I mean, that's.
Well, you know what? You know about that? I'm glad you brought that up. At Les Bowen, make sure you follow Les on the X platform. Read him at PHLY Sports, doing a great job there. You bring that up because I got to training camp this year, Les, and I thought Saquon Barkley was going to be on a milk carton. I thought we wouldn't see him until September 4th, and he got the ball all the time, like way more than last year in training camp. And I'm like, what is going on here? What is going on?
Yeah, but you didn't see A.J. Brown for the last 3 weeks.
No, that's true. And Devontae, it was almost, they were almost sort of right. When Devontae was feeling a little bit something, he sat for 5 days, and then AJ was feeling something, and Devontae came back, and then he sat. They always had one of them, but
and that's everybody knows, it's not any great secret. That's the bugaboo when you're the defending Super Bowl champions. You have the short off season. You played 21 games, and there's going to be guys are going to go down, and you're not going to have the continuity that you really want. Usually, sometimes teams get around that, but it's rare. It really is.
Yeah. Guy we never talk about is Jalen Hurts. He's rock steady. I thought a lot of people said, because God bless Elliott, our buddy Elliott Shore Parks, but a lot of people, and Elliott deserves credit because people around the league, I find, are now doing training camp statistics. But I can't tell you exactly.
The NFL account is posting out training camp stats.
I can't tell you how meaningless they are, but at the same time, I think people look at it and say, well, Jalen wasn't as good this year. I think it was better. I think it's his best off season. I think he's become a good practice player. I would always say, Les, a lot of what Jalen does well doesn't translate to practice because they're blowing plays dead, and he would get frustrated. You remember early, he would get frustrated. They'd blow a play dead, and he'd be like, slam the ball down. Now he's become a good practice player. I think he's going to have his best season. It might not he might not win the Super Bowl, but I think he's going to have his best season. I don't even worry about that guy anymore.
Yeah, I don't worry. I mean, he's so rock solid, up here and in here, that you just don't you don't have the concerns that you have with other people, when it comes to him. Money, fame, any of that stuff. It's he's still the same guy, and I appreciate that very much.
I agree, and they might need a different version of him this year, Les, to as we just talked about, if that defense isn't as good. Les, appreciate it coming in. Last comment from you before we let you run is, what is your expectation for this team this year? Is it NFC title game? Is it Super Bowl? What is the expectation? Because I happen to think, Les, it's changed not only from a fan base perspective or a media perspective, but from inside as well. Internally, I think their expectations are through the roof, which is a good thing, but can also be tough to live up to. What are your expectations for this team?
Well, no Eagles team has come off a Super Bowl appearance and had a good season ever. I keep that in mind, but I also think this is the best. The team that won the Super Bowl this time was the best Eagles team, and it's still very, very good. And I won't be shocked if they're in the Super Bowl again this year. I'm not counting on it, but I think they're as good as anybody. I don't look at any other team and say, oh, well, I don't know how they're going to beat this team. Right now, my expectation is as high as it can get. I don't see failure. I mean, I know they have a tough early schedule, and that could really be a problem in terms of, winning the top seed and stuff like that, because you pile up a few losses early and it's, then you're up against it in terms of that stuff. But I expect a really good team, a team that will be there in the playoffs, and a team that will win playoff games.
Good stuff. Les, thanks for joining in today, man. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow him at Les Bowen, one of the best followers on X. We appreciate you, Les, for doing it today. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. All right, brother?
Good to talk to you guys. Take care.
Thanks, bud.
There's Les Bowen joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff from Les there. Johnny Mack. Always good to get a guy who's been around a lot of football, a lot of training camps, a lot of years around the league to get his perspective on where this team is August 26th.
Yeah, kind of. I'm the same way. I'm like, they're in the conversation. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're back in the Super Bowl, but there's a lot of hurdles, man. A lot of hurdles you got to overcome as the reigning champions. Playing so much is one of them, and coming back after the short off season is always difficult. Think about the head start everybody else gets, if you don't make the playoffs,
right.
And that is you're incrementally eliminated. But that's part of it. Injuries are always the biggest part of it, but that's any season. So that's something you can't really, as we said, you can't legislate, but you also can't worry about, because that's the same for everybody. You saw it with Detroit. Disappointing for them. I mean, they had a great season. I think it would have been that would have been the game of the year, the heavyweight, a healthy Detroit team against Philadelphia, wherever it was, divisional round, NFC champ, however it fell, that would have been the game of the year. Never came to fruition because they just got too many injuries and couldn't persevere. And that's part of the luck part of the equation, which people don't like to talk about, but it's a real thing.
No doubt.
Now that Jeremy Fowler was the one tweeting about Zadarius Smith, I'm like, yeah, bring him in. If worst comes to worst, I mean, that's not what you want, but at his age, but similar to what I said about Von Miller, who's even better in Washington, but he's even older. I think Zadarius is 32 or 33. But he can rush the passer.
We'll see what they end up doing there. I do think the defensive things are interesting because everybody, John, that has been around football for a long time that we brought on this show has pointed out that it's, and it's very obvious. It's not like they're uncovering some novel thing here, but the defense is going to be the catalyst this year. I mean, the offense didn't change much, and the defense, how good they were last year, allowed them to play the game the way that they did. How much does it change? How much are they required to do something different this year in order to have the same level of success? That's going to be the big question, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out, how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think New Orleans might be the winner. I think they just made their cuts. No, I take it back. All right. It's always nice when somebody jumps the gun but it was just explaining what has to happen. So I take it back. False news, fake news. Right off the bat. I thought they were the winner. I like to point out the winner of getting down to 53 the quickest.
Is there an advantage to that? I don't know if
no. I just think it's. I think there's a lot of nonsense about waiting to the final seconds, as opposed to just getting it out there. But I digress.
Yeah, no doubt. I do like the perspective that you guys share on Jalen Hurts. Just like, even Les is like, I just don't worry about that guy, because of the internals. And I think that's a big thing. I mean, there's not many quarterbacks I think you could say that about, especially internally, especially the intangibles that we've talked about with him for so many years. But I'm optimistic on him this year. And you tell me you think he's going to have one of his best seasons ever. I think that's going to be good to see, man. I can't wait to see what Jalen's able to do this year. But I think a lot of the success this year will fall back on his shoulders once again, which isn't a bad thing. It's just kind of the circumstance.
Well, yeah, I'm very comfortable saying I think he's going to have a better season than last year from an individual standpoint. I don't know if it's going to be looked at like that because that'll result because he won the Super Bowl last year. And I think too many people conflate that, which I talk about all the time. But as Les pointed out so eloquently, this is a complimentary game, man. And you and I have talked about it all the time. There isn't much difference between the 2023 Eagles offense and the 2024 Eagles offense from the standpoint of efficacy. It looked a little bit different because you had Saquon versus just a good running back the year prior. But again, number eight, they were effective. They had a bunch of good players, great offensive line, good quarterback play, tremendous receivers, Pro Bowl running back. The difference was the defense was awful in 2023, as Les pointed out. What does that do? That puts more pressure on the offense to take chances, be able to have to score more. Whereas 2024, number one defense in the NFL, keeping City forget out of the end zone.
I wonder what the time, John, is, how many minutes the Eagles spent last year playing from behind. It can't be a lot.
Not a lot. That's the whole point. Now, everybody, to Les's point, everybody wants to play from the lead. It's much easier to play from the lead. And that's why everybody wants to play from the lead. But they accomplished it for the vast majority of the year. So, yeah, the complementary aspect of this game, which Nick Sirianni talks about all the time to his credit, is overlooked a lot of the time. There's a lot of vacuums in this league, whether it comes to trades or personnel moves. Everybody looks at it in that little vacuum. Same thing. When the offense is on the field, vacuum. When the defense is on the field, vacuum. It's not a vacuum. The way they perform special teams as well affects the other groups. And that's why the Eagles are so focused on complimentary football all the time.
One super chat, John, then we'll let you get out of here. Jason A-Team checking in. What's up, A-Team? Appreciate you, brother. He says they seem to be cautious with AJ and Smitty and wanted to see the depth at wide receiver with Jalen in case anyone goes down. Jalen needs more rapport with wide receiver 3, 4, and 5. I don't disagree with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that comes with it. Obviously, Jahan Dotson got here very late, and you'll probably see the same thing with John Mechie this year, getting here late. If he does have to play, chemistry is a thing that develops over time, basically with quarterbacks and receivers. With AJ and Devontae, again, they're not making up injuries. They were dealing with injuries. But, with their great players, and those are two of their great players, they're very cautious. And if they're not 100%, they're going to keep them out of practice. I don't think it had to do anything with looking at other players. If they were healthy, they would have been out there, and they wouldn't have been looking at those other players. That's a silver lining to get more first-team reps for Dotson. And even over the summer, Terrace Marshall would get some. He's going to get waived. Elijah Cooks would get some. Darius Cooper. A bunch of guys got first-team reps that wouldn't have gotten first-team reps. So that's a silver lining, but certainly not a plan, I would say, from the Eagles.
Good stuff. A-Team, appreciate the super chat. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts on this Tuesday edition, cut down day today. John, I presume I'll be talking to you again later on today, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to be down there. Howie's going to talk just a little bit after 4.
Oh, you are. Oh, you are going down there though.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, little after 4, typically, right away. He talks to us after. Hopefully, they'll give it to 1 year. Was it last year? We didn't even have the cuts, and they're like, they're going to start the press conference, and we're like, hey, yeah, could you let us know who got cut?
Yeah, right. We don't have questions until we know who got cut for crying
Yeah.
out loud.
So anyway, yeah. So that's always interesting. But yeah. So Howie will talk today. Nick will be there as well, obviously, but Howie will get the majority of questions, and don't take that as a slight to Nick Sirianni. But yeah, plenty of news coming today.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. John, appreciate you doing it today, brother. As always, great show. We'll talk to you later on today. Good stuff, my friend.
All right. Thanks, all.
All right, there's Johnny Mac, John McMullen here on Birds 365. Appreciate him checking in today. Appreciate him joining the show today. Les Bowen today was great as well. So always good to talk to Les. Let me see. My computer's like all messed up today, folks. I don't know what's going on. It won't let me scroll up here. Come on. I don't know what's going on with my damn computer, but good stuff today. Cut down day, everybody. All right, exciting day for the Eagles. It's also a sad day for some players. You know, a lot of guys who might get cut today might never be able to play again in the NFL. So we'll pour out a Gatorade, or I'll pour out a little bit of my coffee in my Nana mug. All right, I miss my Nana dearly. I'll pour out a little bit of my coffee. So, you know, for those guys today. McCord was released. We saw that yesterday. Good stuff. Les was good. You know, I saw some people in here complaining about some shit. You guys are always complaining. Well, what is up with you guys in the complaining? Oh, my goodness gracious. Good night. Some of you guys, some of the complaints in here are too much. They're too much. All right. Let me see what's going on here. All right. Give me a sec here. Birds, get that off. All right. There we go. Nope, it's still not scrolling. I don't know what's going on. But all right, so we got cut down day for 4 p.m. today. It's going to be interesting to see who makes the cut, who doesn't. All right. I feel like there's not that much ways they can go. I don't think there's going to be any big surprises. The thing I'm looking for today is actually more the trades. Will Howie make a trade? Seems like John has intel. That they're looking to make a trade for an edge rusher. I don't know how big, but let's see what they end up doing. All right, let's see what they end up doing. Abe, I'm not sure who you're talking about. All right. Zander, Howie will make trades. I think you're right, Punjab Kings. Zander, did she pass recently? No. About almost a decade now. 2016. Yeah, so 9 years. 9 years, Hogan. Her birthday was August 1. She would have been 96, I believe she would have been. 96 she would have been. 96 she would have been. Mike just asked, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Let me find some comments on the Eagles. Joel Perez says, Super Bowl is out of the question. Everything we did was for a 2027 run. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, it got harder for us, but I don't think it's out of the equation. There's no way. All right. There's no way. KCA says, Ringo and draft picks for an edge. I see it coming. I could see it, man. I could see it for sure. I think Ringo could be on the outs. I mean, why bring back that player who wasn't able to win the job? And then now I know he's got special teams, but unless they have another special teams guy that could take that spot, maybe they wouldn't trade him. All right, but we'll see. HKP says, do you think our identity will change? Well, I think it will not. I mean, HKP, look, Jalen says this all the time. Every year requires a different version of, he says, me personally, but also the team, also the team. It's a different iteration, I think was the word he used early in the offseason. But, he's talked about how every year of the team has required him to be a different quarterback, him to be a different leader, him to be a different player. And I think naturally, HKP, the evolution will be that it'll be a different version, or the identity will be different. My question is, like, how different from a sense of, can they run like they ran last year? If the defense isn't number one overall, if they're still good, but they're not number one, how much does that change? Like, how much do they have to play differently as compared to what they did? Les brought up a good point. They didn't really play from behind last year. Like, even if if you're not playing from behind, that changes the way you play football. If you're behind, you got to throw it a lot. You got to take chances. You know what I mean? So how much does those things shift? Those are all yet to be determined. We don't know exactly. All right. I think I got to clear some stuff out on this computer. That's my problem. But we'll see. I think the identity will change, HKP. I do. I think it will change. Prince says, it's amusing how quickly some fans give up on such a talented team. I don't think it's given up, Prince. I think that's a little – I mean, I don't think anybody – I mean, if you're giving up, why the fuck – what's the point of even being a fan? What do you mean giving up? I mean, I think people have concerns. I think that's part of what makes us Philadelphia also, Prince. You know, people sometimes see the bad. I don't think that's all a bad thing. All right. Steve Ike says, nobody can stop Saquon. Well, I don't disagree. My great-grandma passed at 102. Sig Lord, you got good genes, my friend. 102 is incredible. A few years back, a couple weeks after being forced to take the COVID back, she got sick right after. Yeah. Sig Lord, pure blood, my friend. I apologize for your loss, though. That's a life well lived, though, my friend. 102 years old. That's a life well lived. All right. Xander, Packers cut Isaiah Simmons. Where do you think he ends up? I don't know. We'll see, man. We will see. Yeah, fans are critical. I'm good with that. All right, I'm good with that. Hogan says, Xander, Crowley, yeah, I have none left to message you up. Hard to see him decline one of the top. Oh, yeah, I guess you're talking about grandparents. Yeah, I only had one, guys. Well, no, I had two, but I was very young when my dad's mother passed. She passed when I was real young. I never had a grandfather. Not a day in my life. Never had a grandfather. Not a single day in my life. I've never had a grandfather. All right. My mom's father died of pancreatic cancer at 63 years old. He was holding out. My mom got married to my father. A month later, he died. So he had it at the wedding and didn't tell anybody because he didn't want to ruin the wedding. And then 1 month later, he passed with his family surrounding him. So that's obviously a month after my parents were married, well before I was born. And then my dad's father, I told you guys this story. My dad's father walked out of him at 6, 7 years old. My dad was delivering papers the next day to pay the bills in the home. They lived in the projects. His mother worked in a steel factory, which he still to this day believes killed her because she died of a heart attack. Those factories are just, especially back in the 70s and 80s, they were brutal. But yeah, he was delivering papers, man, from the time he was 8 years old. Pops walked out on him and never saw him again. So yeah, I never had a grandpa. Something I've always wanted, but it's all good. It is what it is. Z said pure blood. What the fuck? I don't know how else to characterize it, my friend. All right. Haran checks in. Do you think it's worth or even possible for us to trade for Alante Taylor as a true nickel and have Cooper on the outside? I would love to have a true nickel that would give you more flexibility with Cooper DeJean. But I don't know. A bunch of fans seem to just like, Cooper in the slot. Don't put him anywhere else. Like, I know he's good in the slot, but, dude, if he could be a great outside corner, I'm willing to explore that. But not everybody seems to want to go that route, which I don't entirely agree with. But we'll see what they end up doing. All right, we'll see what they end up doing. I happen to be a fan of putting Cooper on the outside. I think it would work. I think he'd be great at it. And I think it would improve your outside corner. All right. Big Mike, all good, man. It's not something you got to be sorry about. It is what it is, brother. We're all a product of our environment. So all good. All good. Curtis, my papa always said, you can be the victim or you can be the victor. I got the greatest father in the world because of that, Curtis. All right. I'm pretty sure because of that. My dad always said to me, I learned how to not be a father. That's what I learned from my dad. That's what he says to me about his pop. It's pretty eerie listening to him talk about it. He says, I was sitting on the steps. It's the only thing I remember from my childhood. Sitting on the top of the steps, watching his dad walk out, never came back. Pretty crazy. Xander, what happened to the Phillies yesterday? Holy shit, Hogan. That was a bloodbath, man. That was a bloodbath. That was ugly. I think they feel. Look, I don't want to. I'm not counting them out yet. I think the Phillies are in trouble. I think the Phillies are in trouble. You lose your ace like that. I don't know. Rich, what are you feeling, man? How are you feeling about the Phillies? Because I'm trying to stay up. I think they have a good team, but we lost Zach Wheeler for the season. Dude, I'm worried about October with no Zach Wheeler. There's no doubt. So, shit. We'll see what ends up happening. Trenton says, you can put Cooper at receiver and he'd make play. I don't disagree with you, Trenton. That's the funniest part. I don't disagree with you at all. I really don't. I really don't. I think Cooper DeJean can make plays anywhere on a football field. All right? I think he can make plays anywhere on a football field. My computer is acting a fool. I got to get new computers for the year, man. Unfortunately, got to pull the trigger on my Apple cart. It's gonna delay me buying new wheels for my car. Tony, what's up, brother? Yo, how was Carlisle, Tony? I was so upset I did not go, but it looked epic. I was watching a bunch of YouTube content on it. Tony, I love the interior upgrade they did on the 26. I got to be honest. The interior upgrade on those 26s really looks good, man. Xander, do you think the Eagles try out any of these DBs or safeties? I'm not sure. We'll see what they do. We'll see what they do, man. Without Wheeler, Phillies are toast. Hey, I don't want to say it yet, man, but well, I know I think as well it was a rare game for Sanchez. He got shelled. What, he gave up 5-6 runs last night? He was smacking the thing in in the dugout. So Corvette heaven. Yeah, I believe it, Tony. I'm happy you had a good weekend, man. I'm happy you had a good weekend. 9 days until the opener. 9 days until the opener. R. Anthony says, I've been on the Trayvon Walker train all summer. Look, I'd love it. Z, you getting the 26 vet? If I did, I would trade in mine. All right, I would trade in mine. I wouldn't get them both. Kind of want a Z06, I won't lie, but that's a little out of my price range. All right, everybody. I appreciate all you guys doing it today. Thanks for doing it as always. All right, it's a good show today. Cut down day today, so we'll see what ends up happening. I want to post up the segments because they're going to become not the time. The time of them needs to get up now, or else they will become meaningless content the minute we get some Eagles news. So let me go and do that. I'm going to go and post them up. Appreciate y'all doing it. Hit the like button. Drop your comments down below or after the show if you want. If you're listening to it after, I always love hearing from all the great people of JAKIB Nation. Thanks for doing it, everybody. See you next time.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.